Hey everybody, this is John for MTG Nexus coming at you with some Orzhov Death Shadow Stoneforge Mystic, however you wish to call it. I know last night I said I was going to GDS, but I ran across this list when I was looking at the Death Shadow lists that have done well in the last week or so, and was reminded of an article by Jeremy Dezani about Orzhov in the form of Stoneforge Mystic, Ranger Captain, and obviously Death Shadow. This is based off of the Mardu Death Shadow list without the red cards, and then slotting Stoneforge Mystic into the slots where some of the other red cards would have fit in. So you're very heavy on disruption in the form of discard spells. You have 4 Inquisition, 4 Thoughtseize, 4 Tidehole Sculler, and a main deck Collective Brutality. So between all that, you're going to have a pretty good idea of what's going on with your opponent. One of the downsides to this version is you only have the 4 copies of Fatal Push, as well as Collective Brutality and Dismember, as well as Anguish Unmaking, to kind of deal with opponent's creatures. So you're a little bit more vulnerable to creature-based strategies, which is one notable thing without a lack of Lightning Bolt in your deck. That obviously Grixis and Mardu have access to. But you do have a small Ranger of Captain Eos package. You're able to grab things like Giver of Runes, Protect Your Death Shadows. So you're a little bit more insulated against removal in this version as opposed to Mardu. But as opposed to relying on having to keep open mana in the Grixis Death Shadow version, or in the Jund version, oftentimes not having something like Stubborn Denial, but you're also a little bit more vulnerable. Even if you do run Stubborn Denial in the Jund, because you're becoming a 4-color mana base, and you're a little bit more vulnerable to Field of Ruin effects, Blood Moon, etc. So, basically this was a condensed version of Mardu by Jeremy Dezani, and other people have been working on it. You're leveraging Stoneforge Mystic as your secondary threat, as opposed to something like Street Wraith, although this particular version does have 1 Street Wraith, although it could be hard to turn it on the first couple turns. For the Stoneforge Mystic package, you don't have Batterskull in the main deck. Instead, you have 1 Sword of Fire and Ice, 1 Sword of Feast and Famine. So basically everything but white is covered with your swords. And then obviously Ranger Captain can offer some modicum of protection, locking your opponent out from casting non-creature spells for a turn. So you can sack this during an upkeep, keep your opponent from sacrifice, or playing something like a Supreme Verdict and maybe finishing off your opponent that way. Or I think last time we played a Burn League, or one of the last times we played a Burn League, I got locked out during my upkeep by Ranger Captain of Eos. While I could have Skull Cracked, I didn't have the ability to cast the Skewer of the Critics in our hand, and our opponent had a couple Death Shadows. So even without the presence of Temur Battle Rage, you do have a lot of ways to get across the finish line. Obviously 4 copies of Street Wraith to pair with your 4 Godless Shrines, 4 Thoughtseizes, and all your fetch lands, and 4 copies of Silent Clearing. So one of the huge advantages of this one also is, despite the fact you're running 21 lands, you do have the ability to draw cards with your lands somewhat. And you do get to play 2 Swamps and a Plains Basic, so you're a little bit less vulnerable to Blood Moon. And this version overall is kind of interesting in terms of what it brings to the table. Whether it has enough power to get across the finish line in a lot of spots, I guess we'll find out. Sideboard, obviously you're a little bit limited by black and white, but Burrington Forge Thunder, pretty nice against Burn and Prowess. 2 copies of Celestial Purge, pretty nice against anything from Death Shadows to Lilianas to any type of mono red. 3 copies of Rest in Peace, pretty good against any type of graveyard shenanigans. Like I said yesterday in the Gruul thing, Dredge had a pretty big weekend, although we didn't run into it in our particular league, etc. This can come in against Storm, come in against fight against Tarmogoyf decks, can come in again fight against Uro decks, just because, you know, those are cards that could have problems with. Collective Brutality against any type of burn and nonsense. Plague Engineer is pretty nice against any type of tribal or creature-based strategy. Liliana, The Last Hope, comes in against Grani decks and like Mana Dork decks pretty much. Kaya is an interesting one. This one has the dual role of being a slower graveyard hate piece, while also being able to snipe things like Champion of the Parish, Ether Vial, opposing Death Shadows, etc. Kaya's Guile gives you a little bit of flexibility in a lot of what's going on. Pretty good against things like Bogles, even though it's a little bit slow, it's good against Burn and such. 2 copies of Damping Sphere, pretty good against Tron, and a little bit against Amulet. You are lacking like other land hate pieces, so if we do run an amulet, we could be a little bit vulnerable if our discard spells aren't quite enough. And obviously, Batter Skull when you need another threat from your Stoneforge Mystic package. A little bit awkward when paired with Death Shadow, but I think generally if you have an unanswered Stoneforge Mystic in the Batter Skull, you're going to be doing pretty good anyway. So, that said, let's hop into a league and see how this deck does. This is very different from any version of Death Shadow I've played in quite some time. Most of the Death Shadow we've been playing on the channel has been more Grixis based. We haven't even played Jund in a while. I also noticed we haven't played any Pioneer in a while. So it's been an interesting run, and I do apologize for the late stream again. It's just been a very, very busy day off. I've been working on some other video projects and such. But hopefully we'll be able to play. Unfortunately, we are not. Wish our opponent good luck. No companion from our opponent. Huh. So do I keep the 3 disruption pieced 4 land hand against an unknown opponent? Guess we're against a control deck. We're probably not going to be in good shape anyway. We're immediately run into Amulet. Yep. Kind of giving away what we're playing here by shocking the stuff in. We immediately draw another fetch land. This hand isn't working out terribly well for us. Don't think there's anything we can collect in Brutality here, so I'm just going to pass. Only have Fatal Push. Not going to... Well, do we crack this fetch land? If they don't play something we can push. So against Amulet, we've basically got 2 Damping Spheres. Doesn't seem very good for the home team. Seems to be on a little bit older version of Amulet. Do we draw a spell? That puts a stop during our upkeep, which really has no effect on things. Inquisition of Kozilek. Doubt this will hit. Probably will tighten in a bunch of lands. Possible I'm supposed to play Silent Clearing there, looking for a threat. Unlikely we're going to be able to kill a Titan with a Dismember, so I think I just go ahead and... No, I need to have outs to... Ranger Captain of Eos. So 3, 4, 5. Crappy Death Shadow. So they played Valakut. They have a bunch of tap lands in their hand. I guess Sunhome is technically an untap land. So do I play Death Shadow here, or do I play Dismember to try to slow them down by a turn? Problem is I don't know that I can set up a kill over one turn anyway. So I think I'm just supposed to Dismember this. Like I said, our opponent's on a little bit of an older version of Titan with Ancient Stirrings. I know Francisco's been going away from Stirrings. He's been using Explore and such. So, opponent likely has Dryad in their deck with Valakut. Not sure what they're considering. Three, four. Put them for 3. That was their draw for this turn. Hopefully they don't have 2 Titans here. Okay, play Death Shadow. Unfortunate, but I guess okay. Stormforge Mystic's interesting. So we know that was their draw step for turn. Really gonna let that connect. Okay. Sort of Feast and Famine. It's going to play it this turn because it really doesn't particularly matter. Upkeep, we're going to stop them from casting something like a Summoner's Pact. This is 3 damage, and then Brutality guarantees that they're dead. Sure. And they concede. Alright. Timely Thopsies bailed our butts out, and our opponent not willing to crack engineer explosives when they probably should have. So, outside of dampening sphere, what even looks good here? Brutality isn't probably great. Gurmag Angler isn't probably great. Purge doesn't kill anything of note. Rest in Peace isn't good against them. Brutality is kind of bad. Plague Engineer could be okay against zombies, but kind of meh against everything else. Probably want the Batter Skull. What else do we go down here? Guess on the draw we can conceivably go down on land. Sand has no disruption, but could potentially present a pretty quick clock. Turn 2 Stoneforge into Batter Skull. Don't think it's good enough in this matchup, but turn 2 Stoneforge into Sword could be pretty good. Well, unfortunate, but can't really turn down this hand, I don't think. Tide Hollow Skull is an interesting one. Let's put the disruption here. Summoner's Pact, Dryad, Dismember. If they want to use the Dismember on this, I think I'm okay with that. Either way, we've slowed them down by a turn. Get some damage first. I think we're going to diversify the CMC of our threats a little bit. Play one of those, play one of these. Grab Sword of Feast and Famine, I think. Do they dismember here? Yeah, sure. Dryad returns to their hand. Tireless Tracker. Untap land would be great here. Awkward. Fatal push here, we can't push, or without revolt on this fatal push, we can't push through. So, yep, there's Dryad, basic forest. Activate. And that's not a terrible draw. Nazis. See what you got. Wow. Okay. Curious to see what they get rid of here. All right. So they get rid of Dryad. Unfortunately, our opponent gets to cast a pact in response, which is fine. We get a prime time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They can probably kill us here, can't they? Valakut plus field. What's up, Space Predator? How are you? Fatal push not having revolt here was problematic. Curious what they do here. They have one card in hand if it's a balance land, we're dead, I think. What do they do with their Valakut triggers is interesting. Sure. Is that enough? Put us to 7. Is that enough? So we go to 7. Seven's a 6/6. So we're 1 damage short. I do believe. Get to untap all our lands, but we're only putting them to 1. Forces them to discard whatever the last card in their hand is. Reclamation Sage. Kill Dryad. Should have played Ranger Captain, but I think we're just going to be dead either way here, so. If our opponent can bounce the... draw EE or find some way to get EE and play and crack it. Maybe that's just too much mana this turn. Is it possible we actually stole a game from, or stole a match from Amulet Titan here? So they attack with everything. Block Titan, block Tracker. One, 2, 3. Bounce Teleria West. I don't know. I'm familiar with Amulet Titan lines, but this is one of those that I'm just like, they probably have a way out, but I'll be darned if I can figure it out for them. I think their out most likely includes transmuting for EE and blowing it, but that requires 3, 4, 5, 6 mana, which I think they'll likely have access to here. See what they do with Titan first. think the thing we want to prioritize most is leaving Stoneforge Mystic alive. So they grabbed Cynic. Okay. Probably bouncing Teleria West. Turned Radiant Fountain. So Radiant Fountain and one unknown in our opponent's hand. Am I willing to risk being blown out by Summoner's Pact for Dryad? Because I think if they had EE for one, they would have played it. Again, if they have EE for one, they next leveled us. It's whatever. Sure. The irony is they're just closing their own outs. Because Death Shadows don't die. Okay, you make a bunch of zombies, but you're still dead to sword. Okay. Attack with my unblockable creature, kill you? Alright, I will be right back. Sorry about that. Not sure how I feel about this particular build yet, but it's interesting. It's I don't know. I know GDS generally has a pretty favorable matchup against Amulet, but I don't think this particular version does. Really wouldn't know, though. I'm not even sure. Honestly, I'm not even sure I've played Mardu's Shadow. So it's a little bit harder to gauge. Go do this. Videos. Yeah, plenty of disruption. Giver of Runes. We're up against Mr. Jangles. We are on the draw, so that will kind of influence how we disrupt our opponent. Mark up 7, we're keeping 7. Okay, basic mountain go. So saying I should be conservative with my life total. Gotcha. Simeon Spirit Guide, Legion War Boss, Goblin Rabble Master. Well, crap. By cracking our fetch land, we've kind of hurt our ability to kill one of these guys. So I think we take Rabble Master. It's more problematic. Could take Spirit Guide to slow them down by a turn. I think we're just supposed to take the threats. Excuse me. Yeah, Rebel Master is more problematic. Here comes Legion War Bus. Beep beep. For another fetch land. Street Wraith is not ideal in this situation, but I think we cycle at least one here. Got one of the cards in their hand. If they have the ability to kill it, they would have killed it already, so do that. Another Legion War Bus, beep beep. Ranger Captain, go grab another Shadow. Opponent's going to try to go wide around us, most likely. Not sure why they didn't play the known land. Okay. Snaring Bridge is annoying, but like we do have a main deck out to it, which is nice. Is there only one though? I think there's only one on our main deck, right? English Unmaking. Yeah, that's our only out. Alright. Well, now we play an interesting game of chicken. So we know their last card in hand's a land. Trigger Revolt here. Fatal Push one of the goblins. Because otherwise they're just going to sit behind their stupid wall and build up goblins while they can't attack. Okay. Alright, that's... makes us winning this game even less likely now. Possible we're supposed to be cycling the unearth here. So we need to hit both our singular planes and an English Unmaking in a 42 card deck. Feels like a chalice on one. Not particularly relevant anymore. Fun, exciting games against prison. Sure. Once again, I could sit here and play this game until they either have enough goblins to kill us or just move on and do things. Bring in the Purges, bring in the Burrington Forge Tender, bring in Batter Skull, bring in Playing Engineer, question mark. Still only having one out to bridge is kind of annoying, but it's whatever here. Maybe go down on Earth. Try it like that. Actually, I probably should have brought in Kaya to counteract their This hand is kind of awkward. Guess we have to keep, though. Plug engineer on the bottom, probably. Okay. Getting Chalice on 1. Got it. Protection from your deck. Go. Feels like a Chalice. Eidolon of the Great Rebel. Sure. Okay, there are no double black cards currently in my deck. So if I were to fetch Godless Shrine, we wouldn't be punished terribly much here. Other than obviously the damage. Because I could fetch Swamp. But then we can't cast Ranger. Don't really like dealing ourselves this much damage, but, you know. Gotta do what you gotta do, I suppose. Sure. Okay. Another Eidolon. I don't think there's anything we particularly care about out of their deck. Do that in response. Play the Sculler Boy here. This card in hand's a land. Play this out. And we got game number 2. Is there anything that we saw there? So they brought in Eidolon against us. Earth, no. Brutality gives us another answer to it. Is this hand good enough? Turn 3 play, turn 3 play. I really think we want a 1-mana discard spell, so I'm going to mulligan this hand. I think this hand's perfectly defensible. Probably put back Godless Shrine. So I actively want to draw another land. So I'm going to cycle first. Okay, Stoneforge isn't terrible. That's actually awkward. I fetched the wrong land here. Played the wrong fetch land. Need to play this so we could fetch Swamp and then switch flip planes with that. Their hand's actively terrible. So the problem I have here is we likely can't beat a resolved bridge with the exception of whatchamacallit, Anguish Unmaking. Magus of the Moon because of my screw up with the is equally bad. Bone Crusher just gets to kill our Stoneforge. So I think my choices in this hand are Simian Spirit Guide to slow them down a turn, Ensnaring Bridge, and Magus. So if I take Spirit Guide, it gives me another turn to draw I think it's just Magus, right? Because they're going to have a hard time emptying their hand. So we either choke them on mana or choke them on their ability to lock us out of the game. I think we choke them on their ability to lock us out of the game. And they immediately draw land. Eidolon I don't particularly care about. So we still know their entire hand. Guess they're debating if they play like SSG or Run out Bone Crusher Giant, or what they're going to do. Trigger me this, Batman. So Stomp is going face, correct. Unsurprisingly. So their hand is currently Kozilek's Return, Simian Spirit God. So am I willing to go to 2 against this Chandra Stomp deck? I think I'm going regardless, so grab a Swamp here, cast Stoneforge Mystic, grab Batterskull, I guess? I don't even know. So know they have Spirit Guide, know they have Kozilek's Return. Does not appear they have a Stomp or a Chandra in hand. If they have a guide effect or goblin effect, they can put us to 1. Looks like they're going for combat step. That was a mistake. Yeah, that was dumb. I needed to block the other way. Yeah, I punted this game away. I needed to block the other way. Needed to get the leave the Bone Crusher Giant in play and block the Eidolon. No, we're just dead. Made a lot of right decisions, made the wrong one at the end. So looks like I've played Mardu Pyromancer, but I never played Mardu Shadow on the channel. That's what I thought. On the play here. Have discard spell into Stoneforge Mystic. Seems reasonable. Grab Godless Shrine here. So we are up against Martyr Proc. Okay. And the one card our deck, or one color our swords are not equipped to handle, is white cards. Guess we take Path and hope Stoneforge sticks. Wayfarer is the one that gets lands. Yep. Sure. Land, please. Okay, another draw to land at least. Yep. Explains why they were so willing to run out the other one. Yeah, we're just not fighting through that wall of things and stuff. Okay, that seems reasonable. That seems reasonable. Plug Engineer seems reasonable. Batter Skull seems alright. They might be on the Maria plan, but I think if we reach that point, we're in trouble anyway. Thoughtseize Inquisitions, Fatal Pushes, Plague Engineer on Humans seems good. Wish Unmaking is probably our least efficient removal spell, but probably reasonable. Tide Hollow Sculler maybe can go out. Click Submit. How's everyone doing tonight? Hope everything is going well for everybody. Sure. Giver of Runes against the mono white deck seems pretty good. Obviously, they could have Path for it, but if they're pathing us and accelerating us, I think I'm I think I'm okay with that outcome. Alright, let's see what you're on. Squadron Hawk, Path, Martyr of Sands. Wow. Their hand is quite greedy and quite terrible. That. So, I think it's take Martyr, leave them with Path. Don't particularly care, I guess. That is one greedy ace hand. I guess we should have actually played Ranger there that turn, because in the end, we don't get to have his mana efficient turn. Next turn we could have gone Triple Death Shadow. So they're going to path themselves to get rampant growth, I suppose. Sure. So I presume they only grabbed 2 Squadron Hawks here. And they grabbed all 3. Does that mean they have a planes? Why would you grab all 3 if you know you have to discard a card? That doesn't seem correct. So our high-powered 2/2 1-drops are gonna pressure our opponent. Our revelation is 10 or more. Alright, cancel. Play planes. Black. Go get another Death Shadow. Grab a Death Shadow. Play the Death Shadow. Rinse, repeat. Seems like a good one. Wrath of God, Squadron Hawk, Ranger Captain, Ranger of Eos, Proclamation of Rebirth, and a partridge in a pear tree. Wrath of God's the only one that particularly matters here. So we are going to and during our upkeep, we're going to do the thing. Another to shadow. Do your upkeep, sacrifice this, that way in case there's anything I can't even think of. And our opponent concedes. Alright. So, Forge Hunter does nothing, Purge does nothing, Purge does nothing, Rest in Peace does not much. Collective Brutality is kind of whatever. They have shown us a bunch of Wrath of Gods. Tide Hollow Sculler isn't quite as reliable. A Disruption Piece. Kaya's Guile doesn't do much. Dampening Sphere doesn't do much. So, outside of playing Gurmag Angler back in the deck, I don't think we want a whole lot what's going on here. Inquisition into stuff seems reasonable enough. Martyr of Sands, sure. Okay, well, let's do this. Path to Exile and Ranger of Eos. Well, I'd feel bad, but you're playing a pile of stuff. And still might win if you hit your 4th land drop. So. Stoneforge Mystic. Grab Batter Skull. Do I grab Batter Skull? Probably the single best threat on its own. This likely is not a... So I think we're going to use Sculler to snipe the... Oof, that's rough. Don't particularly care about them gaining a bunch of life per se. And then Sculler. Sure. Gain a bunch of life. Do a bunch of things. Land. Bunch of Squadron Hawks. Just gonna use this to fetch basic planes. Play Giver of Runes. Probably just attack with Stoneforge Mystic here. Okay. That's a little rough. Question becomes, can we get them below? possibly grab a Death Shadow. Not that it's particularly good here. Okay. Get to do the ranger thing. Hopefully they just grab 2 Sarah's Ascendants and don't realize that I can put them below Sarah Ascendant and Walking Ballista. Okay. That's a thing. Yep. Let's put them below the key threshold for what they're trying to do. Sure. Force them to make up their mind what they're going to do with it. Okay, so we're just going to kill Giver of Runes. To the face. So I have 2 Squadron Hawks in hand. We start by attacking the Batter Skull here. I think I still hold this in the chamber. Nah. It's got 2 Squadron Hawks and 1 unknown. Exit Hawk. Just start going down to creatures. Destroy X, target artifacts or enchantments. Cool. What a weird card to have in your deck. Suppose when you're playing a pile of garbage like Soul Sisters, you have to play with some terrible cards. Sure. Yeah, it's kind of sad, Steve. Like I don't. Soul Sisters and Death and Taxes, I have extremely low opinions of as decks, just because they're so cool. So that means they start to get bringing crap back next turn. 7 planes. Alright. It in itself is not planes, correct? Alright. So we really need to draw a fetch land of some kind, or a Fatal Push, Anguish Unmaking, something to kill that stupid thing this next turn. Stoneforge Mystic. Don't think that quite does it. So getting blown out by Heliod's intervention. I think if we had connected with that Batter Skull equipped sword, I think the game was probably over. As is, we just don't have anything to stop that, so we're just dead. Do we? No, play equipped swords, 5 mana. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sword doesn't do anything relevant, does it? Because I can 2, 2, 2, I can equip it. But all it does is make an opponent discard a card and untap our lands, which doesn't do anything. Alright, so The Mono Red Prism loss was 100% my fault for screwing up the block with Death Shadow and Stoneforge Mystic. Because then I could have cast more spells. Probably been in the game. But Soul Sisters is just a pile. It's a mono-white control deck. That... Sure. Guess we keep. Position the Stoneforge. Hope that's good enough. Humans. So take Champion of the Parish. Keeping a greedy hand could get rewarded, I suppose, if they draw a Vial or another 1-drop. Nope. So, what sword actually matters the most here? Fire and Ice punches through, kills their guys. Feast and Famine causes them, I think we go with Fire and Ice here. If they want to run out of Meddling Mage next turn. Okie dokie. Inquisition. Nobody ever expects the Spanish Inquisition. Okay, do the thing. Hopefully we don't just get dismembered here or something stupid. Meddling Mage, Freebooter, General Kudrow. Alright, and our opponent scoops it up. Okie dokie. So, Kaya seems reasonable. Liliana seems reasonable. Plague Engineer seems reasonable. Purges are debatable. I guess they're reasonable enough against some of their draws. Although I would skeptically debate how good. Collective Brutality seems alright. Kaya's Guile seems a little slow. We might want Batter Skull. Can probably go down Stone Town Hall Scholar. Seems actively bad. Anguish Unmaking probably isn't great. Although, is it necessary in the face of Meddling Mage? Maybe? Yeah. I think they were going to be behind the sword and such, so I don't think we can keep this hand. They're mulliganing to 6. I'm more inclined to keep a bit of a risky keep with Inquisition and push against a mull to 6. This could definitely come back to bite us in the boogan. But the upside of Plague Engineer is pretty high here. Human. With no plays. Okay. I know I wanted to draw another Death Shadow. That's exactly what I wanted to draw here. Meddling Mage, Mantis Rider, Freebooter. Come on and take a free ride. Come on and take a Meddling Mage. Because we can answer Freebooter with Celestial Purge to get back the Fatal Push. Or we can just purge the Mantis Rider if they manage to curve out. So, I just don't want Mage locking out like some random spell. Whereas I'm fine getting 1-for-1 by Freebooter and then being able to answer it with the other thing. Taking Fatal Push because it's the one they have to take. How are you doing tonight, Steven? Kind of a quiet night. Doesn't seem like there's too many fans of Orzhov Death Shadow. Maybe it's the fact I started late. I don't know. Didn't really seem to affect things last night. Why would you take Celestial Purge there? That makes little to no sense. Like, really little sense here. I'm perfectly fine taking a hit for 1. Feels like they're going to play a Thalia post-combat. Yeah, that is annoying, but not particularly relevant. Especially if we hit that. So, we both come beneath the wind, naming human as we see. Goodbye, Thalia, we barely knew you. Even if this gets Reflector Mage, I don't care. Finished up Freebird's Burrito. Can't say I'm familiar with that. Tear up, sweet, sweet Jean, oh, a coming queen, a dream believer and a homecoming queen. Wow, they're gonna crack a land. That's how you know your draw is not coming together. And they have conceded the game. Thoughtseize into Street Wraith into... Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So we should be potentially 3-1 if I hadn't punted the game away against Mono Red Prison in game number 3. I still stand by my decision to concede in game number 1 of that match because we would have had to require to draw specifically Plains, Anguished Unmaking. There might have been a spot I could have fetched basic Plains. I also think there was a point earlier in that game where I might have been able to fetch basic Plains in game... I can't remember if it was game number 2 or game number 3, though, so... We are... Double Thoughtseize, 4 lands, Sword of Feast and Famine. Don't think we can keep this hand. This hand's much more interesting to me, though I don't think it's particularly good. I put the sword back. Play Marsh Flats, have a Fatal Push on turn 1. Well, actually, the okay. Amulet again. Alright. The humans versus Amulet matchup is actually very, interesting from what I've been told. Summoner's Pact, Primeval Titan. Wow. That is a greedy keep. Still better than the Soul Sisters deck. Unlander with Power of Devastation and Ranger in hand. Yep. But if they rip a bounce land, we are in a lot of trouble. So... what am I taking here is the question. I wish I could take Valakut, honestly. Next turn they get to... I guess we just take one of the Summoner's Packs. Take a Sword of Feast and Famine. Hope we get to play and equip that next turn, and hopefully annihilate this opponent before they can get back into the game. Because you at least draw bounce land. Play Scholar as much as I want to run out. Should have attacked with Stoneforge Mystic here. And our opponent scoops it up. Well, that was one of those hands that, if they get to play the second Amulet and then hit a bounce land, that game is so over, it's unreal. Damping Spheres. I don't think Kaya is worth bringing in just to fight whatchamacallit there. Bring these out because Bog is... Yeah, that was one of those hands that's like 7 card. Well, if I draw a green bounce land, I win the dang game. Like, well, I can completely understand. Whereas my Soul Sister's opponent's hand was like, Sand has a decent progression. We get to go Thoughtseize into Scholar into Ranger Captain and grab a Death Shadow. We don't have a ton of pressure, but we do have a nice progression of disruption, so I think I'm going to keep this hand. Pact and Force of Vigor. Can taste Force of Vigor next turn if we absolutely have to. They Rip Ride. Nope, just doing Tellurian West things. Okay. So I don't think if I play Death Shadow it's a 2-turn clock. But I'm still going to cycle Unearth first. On the off chance we hit a... that was not the card we were looking for. At least we still get to kill Dryad next turn, which is nice. So... because we get to go Ranger Captain, sack it, Fatal Push. Get to hit them for 7 next turn. So Vesuva's in their hand. Did they actually draw a Dryad as opposed to having a pack for it? That'd be really bad for us. I guess Azusa would be even worse. Okay, now they've got a pack for whatever they're doing here. Probably just Dryad into a land. Yep. Copying. Yep, try them again. So they have 2 cards in hand. Don't know either one of them. Is that correct? Most likely. That's a pretty decent one. They have to spend their turn. That was a screw up. I needed to play the shock land here. I'm going to miss out on a couple points damage here. It might end up being relevant. Because this turn they have to pay for Pact. So they're unlikely to be able to add too much else to the board. And we get to Sculler. Potentially take their play. Okay, there's probably naming Giant. Yep. So opponent should be at 11. So I guess the clock isn't going to change exactly. Well, it's about as Thoughtseize proof as a hand gets. 2, 3. So they can, I think, depending on what their draw step was. Yep. Make at least one zombie this turn. Opponent should be a 4, which actually may end up coming to be relevant here. Because if the opponent was at 4, then the 2 Scullers would be lethal. So I guess we do have outs, but they are slim. So they're forced to chump block the 2 shadows. And the Scullers get through. This is going to force them to... So they get to make some zombies next turn, but I don't know if that's going to be quite enough here. Opponent should obviously be dead here. Yep. And yep. We do lose a shadow in the process, which is annoying, but I think that's worth the price of admission against a... Don't know the D-Sphere does a ton here. It does force them to be choked on mana. Why wouldn't you tap your... Okay. I think you should have left your... I don't even know. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. So a 3-2 that should have been a 4-1. I don't really have too many things about the details. This one, Gurmag Angler, I don't think we ever drew it. I just think it's really hard to turn that on, honestly. I think in Jeremy Dezani's original list, he had a second Giver of Runes in that spot, which makes some sense. They cut Cages because from the original list... What did they put in there? Kaya's Guiles, I guess? Nope. Put in a Plague Engineer, a Burrington Forge. Nope, that was in the original list. Interesting overall. What do you do against Chalice? I don't know, try to beat him with Stoneforge Mystic and Ranger Captain. You also have Anguish Unmaking, and you also have Kaya out of the sideboard. Plus you have 12 discard spells to hit it. I mean, it's certainly problematic, but it's not unbeatable. Like, your odds probably aren't very good against it, but... So. That's such... interesting. Not dropping a frame. I guess I did drop frames there for a minute. But, anywho, gonna finish up here. 3-2, could have been 4-1. Probably don't really have enough thought about the details. Was nice to play with Stoneforge Mystic tonight. Beyond that, you can beat Chalice by Anguish Unmaking and potentially Kaya. Beyond that, you could play things like Disenchant if you really wanted to. Or even Heliod's Intervention, as we got blown out by, I suppose. But yeah, deck was a blast. Not much else to say about it. Feels a little less complicated than GDS, but same time, pulling a lot of the same strategy, disruption into pressure. Stoneforge package was nice in some spots. Sword of Feast and Famine was clutch against Amulet a couple of times. Obviously not going to prepare heavy for the mono white deck that we lost to Soul Sisters as Soul Sisters. And even that, if they wouldn't have had Heliod's Intervention. So this could very easily have been a 5-0 league. You know, one misplay and then one blowout by a card that you don't really play around. So, you know, that's Magic sometimes. You know, there's not really a whole lot of difference sometimes between a 3-2 and a 5-0, and sometimes between a 3-2 and a 1-4. So I think people get too caught up in results sometimes and really need to look at the underlying factors of the why did X happen as opposed to why. So, anywho, this has been John for MTG Next.